All right, get ready to dive deep because today we're all about building a cybersecurity fortress for your business.
I like that, a cybersecurity fortress.
Yeah, and our blueprint for this fortress, it's a comprehensive guide from Barnard Donick and Insurance.
Oh, good source.
Yeah, they've actually pulled together insights from those leading authorities like, the FCC and the DHS.
So we know we're getting the good stuff.
Exactly. So let's see what we can pull out of this to help protect our businesses, our data, and our customers.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that jumps out right away from this guide is that it's really emphasizing understanding and protecting your data.
Yeah, that seems to be at the core of cybersecurity.
It really is. It's not just about the tech.
Right. So it's not just about, super strong passwords.
Passwords are important, but it's bigger than that.
Okay.
Think of it this way. Your data is like the crown jewels of your business.
Okay.
And you wouldn't just leave a pile of jewels sitting out unguarded, right?
Definitely not. But how do I even begin to figure out what needs protecting?
Well, the guide recommends doing a full data inventory
Okay.
as your first step. And that's about identifying all the types of data your business handles,
Okay.
where it's stored, who has access, and why.
So that's everything from customer records, financial information,
Absolutely.
those top secret marketing plans.
Even employee reviews.
Okay, so it's not just about, hackers stealing credit card numbers.
Right.
It's about protecting pretty much every digital aspect of my business.
Yeah, you want to think about it holistically.
But wouldn't it be easier to just, lock everything down super tight?
Well,
Why do I need to worry about who has access to what?
too much lockdown can actually hinder your operations.
Okay,
The key is to classify your data
okay.
based on sensitivity, so some data needs more protection than others.
Right, like credit card information probably needs more protection than
Absolutely.
my internal memos.
That's a great example, and that's where this idea of access control comes in.
Okay,
Who really needs access to what?
okay.
And under what circumstances?
Makes sense.
We talked about passwords, but encryption is another really important layer.
Okay,
It's like scrambling your data,
okay.
so only people with a decryption key can read it.
So it's like those, secret decoder rings we had as kids.
Exactly.
But for my digital life,
Yes.
now the guide also mentions privacy policies.
Yeah.
And honestly, those usually feel like just a bunch of legal jargon that I have to include on my website.
I know they can feel that way.
Right.
But a clear privacy policy actually does more than just keep you compliant.
Okay.
It builds trust with your customers.
So it's not just a checkbox.
It's not a checkbox. It's really about transparency and building that relationship.
Okay, but don't most businesses just use like a generic template?
Yeah, a lot of them do.
What should my privacy policy really address?
Well, it needs to clearly explain how you collect, use, and protect customer data.
Okay.
So think personally identifiable information.
Okay.
Things like names and addresses, any data that you collect directly from them. And if you're in healthcare, you've got even stricter rules around protecting health information.
Right. The stakes are definitely higher with health records.
Absolutely.
Now, this next section is titled Security is Like an Onion, Layers.
That's a good one.
I'm intrigued. Does this have to do with making hackers cry?
Not quite,
Okay.
although that would be nice.
It would be nice. Yeah.
But it means that your cybersecurity should have multiple layers of protection.
Okay.
You can't just rely on a single firewall or a password policy.
Right.
If one layer fails, the others are there as backup.
So it's about making it as hard as possible for an attacker to get through.
You got it.
Okay. I like the sound of this multi-layer approach.
It's the way to go.
But what are some of the specific layers that I should be thinking about?
Sure.
We already talked about access control and strong passwords.
We did. Those are great first steps.
Yeah.
And we touched on encryption.
Right.
There's also things like firewalls, intrusion detection systems,
Oh, okay.
and other security measures that can help create that layered defense.
Okay, so it's all about having a comprehensive strategy.
That's exactly right.
Now I see a section here titled, Don't Forget the Human Element.
Oh, this is important.
Are you saying that even with all these layers, my employees could still mess things up?
Unfortunately, yes, people are often the weakest link
Okay.
in the security chain.
So even with the best tech, human error can create vulnerabilities.
It's true.
Okay, so no clicking on that, you want a free iPad.
Right.
No matter how tempting.
No matter how tempting, exactly.
But give me a real-world example as how an employee could accidentally open the door to a cyber attack.
Imagine an employee gets an email that looks exactly like it's from the IT department,
Okay.
asking them to update their login credentials.
Okay.
So they click the link, they enter their information,
Oh, no.
and boom, suddenly a hacker has access to sensitive company data.
Wow, that's scary. I never thought about how easily someone could fall for that.
It's all about social engineering,
Okay.
manipulating people, into giving up information or downloading malicious software.
So it preys on our trust, our desire to be helpful.
Exactly.
So training my team to be extra vigilant is crucial.
It's really one of the most important things you can do.
Don't trust anything that seems even slightly off, right?
Exactly. Verify identities, be wary of any unsolicited requests for information.
Okay.
And if anything seems suspicious, report it immediately.
Got it. So let's talk about securing my network.
Okay?
The backbone of my business's digital operations.
That's essential.
Okay, firewalls and all that jazz, right?
Firewalls are important.
Yeah.
But the guy actually highlights 3 crucial aspects of network security.
Oh, okay.
First, you need to know every device that's connected to your network.
So that's computers, servers, smartphones.
Everything.
Wow, that's a lot to get track of.
It is, but it's important because any device that can access your network is a potential entry point.
Okay, what's the second aspect?
It's about establishing clear boundaries between systems.
Okay.
Think of it like compartmentalizing a ship.
Okay.
If one section gets compromised, the damage is contained.
Got it. And finally, we need to control access
Yes.
to prevent those unauthorized entries.
Exactly. And this is where those firewalls come in: intrusion detection systems,
Okay.
strong password policies.
Okay.
And don't forget about your cloud services.
Right.
Many businesses store data in the cloud these days,
Okay.
and that requires a shared responsibility model for security.
Shared responsibility, so I can't just assume that was cloud provider is handling everything.
That's right. You're responsible for securing your data
Okay.
and applications within their infrastructure.
So it's kind of like renting an apartment.
Yes.
The landlord maintains the building.
Right.
But I'm responsible for securing my own unit.
That's a great analogy.
Okay, I'm starting to see how many pieces there are to this cybersecurity puzzle.
There are a lot of pieces, but we're going to put them all together.
And we're just getting started.
We are.
So next, let's talk about my website.
Okay.
It's often the first point of contact for customers.
Yeah, it's your digital storefront.
And unfortunately, a prime target for cyber criminals.
That's right.
Okay, so we're moving on to websites. More than just a pretty face.
It's more than just a pretty face.
I guess a fancy design won't stop those hackers.
It won't.
Website security goes far beyond aesthetics.
It really does. It's about protecting your data, your customers, trust your reputation.
Okay, because a breach can have serious consequences.
It can.
Financial loss.
Damage to your brand.
Even legal liability.
All of the above.
Okay, those are some serious stakes. So what are the biggest threats I should be worried about when it comes to my website?
Well, one is exploiting software vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Think of it like finding a backdoor to your website
Okay.
and slipping in unnoticed.
Okay.
These vulnerabilities could be bugs in your code,
Okay.
your server operating system,
Oh, wow.
even third-party plugins.
So even if I do everything right, a vulnerability and a plugin that I use could leave me exposed.
That's possible, which is why keeping your software updated is so important.
Okay.
Because those updates often include security patches that fix those backdoors.
Okay, so regular updates are a must.
Absolutely.
What other threats are out there?
Denial of service attacks are another big one.
Right.
Remember that digital mob
Yeah.
overwhelming your website
Yeah.
with traffic?
So it's not just about stealing data, it's about shutting down my entire online presence.
It can be.
So what can I do to protect against that?
Your network infrastructure plays a big role here.
Okay.
Robust firewalls, intrusion detection systems,
Okay.
other security measures can help.
It's like building a digital moat around my castle.
Exactly.
What about securing the communication channels of my business?
Okay.
Email, for example.
Yeah,
It seems so basic, but I imagine it's also a major vulnerability.
it is.
Okay, so spam filters are obviously a must.
Yeah, they're a good first line of defense.
But are they enough to keep those phishing emails out of my inbox?
They're not foolproof.
Okay.
Employee training is crucial here.
Got it.
Your team needs to know how to spot those suspicious emails,
Okay.
verify sender identities, and avoid clicking on anything that seems fishy.
So I need to teach my team how to be savvy digital detectives.
Yes, teach them well.
What about protecting sensitive information that does need to be sent via email?
That's where encryption comes in.
Okay.
It's like putting that sensitive information in a digital lockbox,
Makes sense.
ensuring that only the intended recipient can unlock it.
Okay. Any other email security tips I should be aware of?
The guide also recommends implementing a sensible email retention policy.
You mean I shouldn't be hoarding every email I've ever received since 1998?
Exactly. A retention policy helps reduce storage costs,
Okay.
manage legal risks,
Okay.
and streamlines data management.
Okay. I can definitely get on board with a cleaner inbox.
Me too.
Now, this next section is titled Mobile Security, On-the-Go Protection.
This is a big one.
We're all glued to our smartphone these days,
We are.
so I imagine they're a big target for cyber criminals.
It's a huge target.
Okay, so how do we protect ourselves in this mobile Wild West?
The guide recommends a multifaceted approach.
Okay,
First, security software is a must-have.
right.
Think antivirus and anti-malware apps specifically designed for smartphones.
Because my phone probably has more sensitive information on it than my laptop at this point.
Probably.
And just like with computers, keeping my phone's software up to date is crucial.
Yes, those updates often include those security hatches that we talked about.
Okay, so no ignoring those pesky update notifications.
No
Of
ignoring.
course.
Encrypting your device data is another crucial step.
Okay.
This ensures that even if your phone is lost or stolen, The thief can't access your sensitive information.
It's like a digital safe for my phone.
Exactly.
But even with all the best tech in place, it's sometimes the human element that creates vulnerabilities.
Right.
So what are some best practices for making sure my employees are cyber aware when it comes to their mobile devices?
Strong passwords are a must, of course,
Okay.
but it's also about being mindful of your surroundings. Avoid accessing sensitive information on public Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Be aware of who might be watching when you're entering passwords or viewing confidential data.
So no checking my bank balance while I'm standing in line at the coffee shop.
Exactly.
Got it.
Good rule of thumb.
And this brings us to an often overlooked aspect of cybersecurity, the people within your business.
This is so
They
important.
can be both your greatest asset and your biggest vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's dive into your employees. Assets and risks.
Let's do it.
So I'm assuming this is all about finding that sweet spot between empowering your team and protecting your business from their potential missteps.
You nailed it.
Okay, so it starts with thorough vetting during the hiring process,
Yes.
background checks, verifying credentials, checking references.
All of those things.
It's not just about preventing sabotage.
It's about making sure you're bringing in individuals who understand the importance of data security.
Right, so I need to make sure that cybersecurity awareness is a core part of my company culture.
From day one.
From day one, what are some ways to make sure that my team is properly trained?
Well, the guide highlights the importance of ongoing security awareness training.
Okay,
And it shouldn't just be a boring lecture or online module.
right.
Make it interactive, make it engaging, and make it relevant to their daily work.
Okay, so maybe turn it into a game or a competition.
Exactly. A little friendly rivalry can go a long way.
Yeah, I'm always up for some friendly rivalry.
And don't forget to update the training regularly
Right,
to address those new threats and those best practices that we've talked about.
because the cyber criminals aren't exactly resting on their laurels.
They're not. They're always coming up with new tricks.
So ongoing training is crucial. It's about staying one step ahead.
It is. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Okay, so training is a must-have layer in my cybersecurity onion.
It is.
But I see another interesting section here. Physical security still matters.
This is a good one.
I thought we were all about the digital world today.
Well, it's easy to get caught up in the digital realm,
Yeah.
but physical security is still incredibly important.
Okay, so we're talking about locks and keys, security cameras, that sort of thing.
Those are definitely part of it,
Yeah,
but it also goes deeper. Think about how you handle sensitive documents.
right.
Do you have secure storage for paper files?
Okay.
Do you have a clean desk policy
Okay.
to prevent information from being left out in the open?
Right, because sometimes it's the simplest things that we forget about.
Absolutely.
What about getting rid of those old documents and computers?
Yes.
I'm assuming just tossing them in the trash isn't the best approach?
It's not. You need to securely dispose of both physical and digital waste.
Okay.
So shredding documents,
Okay.
wiping hard drives, using reputable e-waste recyclers.
Okay, so physical security is like the foundation of my cybersecurity fortress.
I like that analogy.
And on top of that foundation, we need to add another layer,
We do.
a proactive mindset.
Yes.
The guide calls this OPSET, thinking like the adversary.
Ooh, getting into the mind of the enemy.
OPSEC? That sounds intense. What exactly does it entail?
It's about anticipating threats and identifying vulnerabilities
Okay.
before they can be exploited.
So you put yourself in the shoes of a potential attacker and think, how would I try to breach this system?
Exactly.
So it's like playing a mental game of chess.
You got it.
With those cybercriminals?
Yes,
Okay, and the guide outlines a 5-step OPSEC process to help us get started.
it does.
All right, what's step 1?
First, you identify your critical information.
Okay.
What data would cause the most damage if it fell into the wrong hands?
Okay, so I need to know my enemy.
You do.
What's next?
Then you analyze the threats.
Okay.
Who might be targeting you? What are their motivations?
All right, so step 1, know your enemy. Step 2, analyze the threats.
Exactly.
What's next?
Next, you analyze your vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Where are the weak points in your systems and your processes?
Okay. And then
Once you've identified those, you assess the risk. How likely is it that each vulnerability will be exploited, and what would be the impact?
So it's not just about identifying those vulnerabilities, it's about prioritizing them
Right.
based on their potential impact.
You got it.
Makes sense. What's the final step in this OPSEC process?
Applying countermeasures.
Okay.
This is where you develop and implement strategies to mitigate the risks that you've identified.
Okay, so OPSEC is all about being proactive and constantly evaluating my defenses.
Absolutely. Always be on guard.
Got it. Now, for businesses that handle sensitive financial data like credit card information,
Yeah.
there's a whole other level of security to consider.
There is.
Let's talk about payment card security, protecting the flow of money.
All right, let's secure those funds.
What are the key takeaways from this section?
Well, it starts with understanding exactly what customer and card data you collect and store.
Okay.
The guide really emphasizes the importance of evaluating whether you truly need to keep all of that data.
Because the less data I store, the less risk I have if a breach does occur.
That's right, minimize that data footprint.
Okay, what else?
Tokenization is a powerful tool for reducing risk. It's
Tokenization.
like using a stand-in for the real credit card number,
Okay.
protecting the original data from prying eyes.
Okay, so tokenization is like those fake credit cards that they use in movies.
That's a great analogy.
What other measures are crucial for payment card security?
The guide emphasizes the importance of using secure tools and services,
Okay.
especially for payment processing.
Okay.
Controlling access to those systems is also key.
Right.
Only authorized employees should have access.
Okay.
And those systems should be isolated from less secure parts of your network.
Right. Got to keep those financial fortresses locked down tight.
Absolutely.
And as always, the basics still apply.
They do.
Strong passwords, firewalls, antivirus software, and being cautious with suspicious links.
It all adds up.
Okay, so even with all the fancy security measures, it still comes down to good digital hygiene.
Good digital hygiene is essential.
Now, even with the best defenses, sometimes the unexpected happens.
It does.
Let's talk about what to do when those walls are breached.
Okay, deep breaths, everyone.
I'm bracing myself for incident response. What happens when the walls are breached?
It's not a fun topic.
This is the stuff of nightmares, right?
It can be, but it's important to be prepared.
Okay, so it's not a matter of if, but when.
Unfortunately, that's often the case in the digital world.
And the key is to have a solid incident response plan in place
Before disaster strikes.
before disaster strikes. Okay, so what are the essential elements of a good incident response plan?
The guide outlines 3 steps.
Okay.
First, you need to contain the breach.
Okay.
This means identifying the scope of the damage, isolating affected systems, and stopping any further unauthorized access.
Right, damage control on a digital scale.
Exactly. Then you move into the recovery process.
Okay.
Restoring data from backups, cleaning infected systems, rebuilding compromised infrastructure.
Okay, so getting things back up and running as quickly and securely as possible.
That's the goal.
And once we've recovered, it's crucial to hold a lessons learned meeting.
Yes, this is so important.
Analyze what went wrong, how the breach happened, what steps we can take to prevent it from happening again.
Exactly. It's about turning a negative experience into a learning opportunity.
I like that.
And documentation throughout the entire process is essential.
Okay.
This can help you improve your security posture,
Okay.
demonstrate compliance, and defend yourself in potential legal proceedings.
Right, because if a breach does occur, I want to be able to show that I took all the necessary precautions
Exactly.
and that I responded appropriately.
That's right.
Okay, so incident response is all about being prepared, acting quickly,
Yes.
and learning from our mistakes.
You got it.
Now let's shift gears and talk about policy development, setting the rules of the game.
All right, let's lay down the law.
I'm guessing this is all about establishing those ground rules and making sure that everyone in my company is on the same page
It is.
when it comes to cybersecurity.
It's about setting those expectations.
Okay, so what are the key elements that I should include in my cybersecurity policies?
The guide highlights the importance of defining clear roles and responsibilities.
Okay.
Who has access to what data? Who's responsible for managing and protecting that data?
Right, because ambiguity breeds chaos in the digital world.
It does.
What other policies should I consider?
Think about your internet usage policy.
Okay.
How can you balance employee access with protecting the business from potential risks?
Okay.
Social media policies are also crucial.
Okay.
How can you mitigate reputational risks and prevent the disclosure of confidential information?
So my policies need to cover both the technical and the human aspects of cybersecurity.
They do. It's about creating a holistic approach to security.
And remember, those policies shouldn't just be static documents.
Right.
They need to be regularly reviewed and updated
Absolutely.
to keep pace with that evolving threat landscape
Yes.
and the changing needs of my business.
It's about staying agile and adaptable.
Okay, so cybersecurity policies are a living document,
They are.
constantly evolving and adapting to new challenges.
That's the key.
Got it. We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have, and we're just getting started.
Feeling a little overwhelmed,
It's a lot to take in.
but also empowered.
That's the spirit.
Stay tuned for part 2 of this deep dive where we'll unpack even more cybersecurity strategy
We'll be back with more.
and hopefully have a little fun along the way.
Always.
Until then, stay secure out there.
Absolutely.
Okay, I need a moment to process all that. Building a cybersecurity fortress is quite the undertaking.
It's a journey.
It is, but before we move on to even more strategies, I'm realizing this guide is packed with technical terms.
Yeah.
It'd be helpful to define a few key concepts. I'm sure our listeners have heard of things like malware,
Right.
but do they really understand what they're up against?
You bring up a great point. Understanding the terminology is crucial for navigating the cybersecurity landscape.
Okay.
So let's start with malware.
Okay, malware.
You're likely to encounter this term frequently.
Okay.
And it's a broad one.
So malware is more of an umbrella term.
Exactly. It encompasses any malicious software, designed to harm or exploit a computer system.
Okay.
Think viruses, worms, Trojan horses, spyware.
Okay.
They all fall under the malware umbrella.
Okay, so it's basically any sneaky program that can infiltrate my system and cause trouble.
That's a good way to put it.
What about denial of service attacks?
Ah, yes.
We touched on this earlier when discussing websites.
Right. Remember that analogy of a digital mob overwhelming your website?
Yeah.
That's a denial of service attack in a nutshell.
Okay.
An attempt to flood your system with traffic, making it inaccessible to legitimate users.
And these attacks can really cripple a business, especially one that relies heavily on its online presence.
Absolutely. They can bring your operations to a screeching halt.
What are some other terms that our listeners should be familiar with?
Phishing is a big one.
Okay, phishing.
And it's becoming increasingly sophisticated.
Ugh, phishing emails. I feel like I can spot them a mile away, but I know they're getting trickier.
They are.
How can I make sure my team is extra cautious, especially with so many emails flooding our inboxes daily?
It's all about vigilance and awareness.
Okay.
Remind your team to double-check sender addresses,
Okay.
hover over links before clicking,
Okay.
and never open attachments from unknown sources.
Got it.
If something feels even slightly off, it's better to err on the side of caution.
So trust but verify.
Exactly.
Speaking of trust, what about social engineering?
Oh, yes.
I remember the example you gave earlier, the fake email from the IT department. It's terrifying how easily someone could fall for that.
Social engineering is all about manipulating human psychology to bypass those security measures.
Right.
It preys on our trust, our helpfulness, and sometimes even our fear.
Okay, so it's not just about strong passwords and firewalls. It's also about training my team to recognize those psychological tricks.
It's about building that human firewall.
Okay, what are some other key cybersecurity terms that our listeners should be familiar with?
Encryption is a big one.
Okay, encryption.
Remember that digital lockbox analogy?
Yeah.
It's about scrambling data so only people with a decryption key can read it.
Right.
And encryption is crucial for protecting sensitive information, both when it's stored on your systems and when it's transmitted over networks.
Okay, so encryption is like a must-have layer in my cybersecurity onion.
It is absolutely essential.
What about firewalls?
Firewalls, I know those are important,
They are.
but I'm still a little fuzzy on what they actually do.
Think of a firewall as a digital gatekeeper for your network.
Okay.
It monitors incoming and outgoing traffic,
Okay.
blocking anything that doesn't meet your specified security rules.
So it's like a bouncer for my network.
Exactly, keeping out the riffraff.
Got it. Firewalls are essential. Now I keep hearing about multi-factor authentication.
Ah, yes.
Is that really necessary? I feel like passwords are already a hassle.
I know they can be,
Yeah.
but passwords are often not enough on their own.
Okay.
Multi-factor authentication adds an extra layer of security
Okay.
by requiring users to provide multiple forms of verification. Okay, so it's like that extra lock on your front door.
Exactly.
Even if someone has the key, they still need to get past that extra layer of security.
That's a great way to think about it.
Okay.
It could be a code sent to your phone, a fingerprint scan, or a security token.
Okay.
The idea is to make it much harder for an attacker to compromise accounts, even if they manage to steal a password.
Okay, I'm convinced multi-factor authentication it is.
Good choice.
Now I'm realizing that technology is only part of the equation. We've talked a lot about technical safeguards.
We have.
But what about the human element? How can I minimize the risk of my employees accidentally messing things up?
It's crucial to create a culture of security awareness within your company.
Okay.
Train your employees to be vigilant,
Okay.
but also make it easy for them to report suspicious activity
Okay.
without fear of repercussions.
So it's about building a culture of trust, but also accountability.
Exactly. You want to encourage open communication.
What are some common mistakes that employees make that can compromise cybersecurity?
Falling for phishing scams is a big one.
Okay.
We talked about that earlier, but it's worth reiterating.
Right.
Those scams are becoming increasingly sophisticated.
Sometimes those emails look so real.
I know it's getting harder and harder to tell the difference.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important to train your employees to be skeptical and double-check everything.
Right.
Don't just click on a link or open an attachment without thinking.
Okay, what about passwords? I know it seems basic,
Yeah.
but I'm sure weak passwords are still a major problem.
You're absolutely right. Using weak passwords or reusing the same password across multiple accounts
Right.
is like leaving the keys to your digital kingdom under the welcome mat.
Okay, no more welcome mat passwords.
Encourage your employees to create strong, unique passwords for every account.
Okay, so password managers are our friends.
Password managers can be a lifesaver. They can help you generate and store those complex passwords.
Yeah, that's good. What other common pitfalls should I warn my team about?
Neglecting software updates is another big one.
Oh, right.
Those updates often include security patches that fix vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Ignoring those updates is like leaving your system wide open to attack.
Okay, I'll admit sometimes I'm guilty of ignoring those update notifications, but I'm starting to see how crucial they are.
They are. Don't put it off.
What about backing up data? I know I should be doing it more often, but it always seems to slip my mind.
Backups are your insurance policy in case of a digital disaster.
Okay.
Imagine your system gets hit with ransomware,
Okay.
which encrypts all your files and demands a hefty ransom to unlock them.
Ugh, that sounds like a nightmare.
It is, and if you don't have recent backups,
Yeah.
you're in a tough spot. You either pay the ransom or risk losing all your data.
Okay, you've convinced me backups are moving to the top of my to-do list.
Good move.
Any other advice for minimizing the risk of human error?
Be clear about your expectations for cybersecurity.
Okay.
Outline acceptable use policies for computers, email, and the internet,
Okay.
and provide regular training that's engaging and relevant to their roles.
So it's about creating a culture where cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility,
Exactly. It's a team effort.
not just the IT department's problem.
Right. Everyone has a role to play.
Okay, now let's shift gears and talk about something that many businesses overlook.
Okay.
Physical security.
Yes.
It's easy to get caught up in the digital world.
I know we spend so much time online.
We do.
But physical security is still incredibly important.
I'm intrigued we're moving on to physical security still matters. What exactly do we need to think about here?
Think about how you handle sensitive documents.
Okay.
Do you have secure storage for paper files?
Okay.
Is there a clean desk policy to prevent information from being left out in the open?
Right. Sometimes it's the simplest things that we forget about. What about getting rid of old documents and electronic devices?
Secure disposal is key.
Okay.
Shred those sensitive documents.
Okay.
Wipe those hard drive before getting rid of them.
Okay.
And use a reputable e-waste recycler for old electronics.
Okay, so physical security is like building a moat around my cybersecurity fortress.
I love that analogy. It's about creating those layers of protection.
Right, both physical and digital.
Now let's talk about a proactive approach to security.
Okay.
Something the guy calls OPSEC, thinking like the adversary.
OPSEC, I'm sensing this is about getting inside the minds of those cyber criminals, right?
Exactly. It's about anticipating threats and identifying vulnerabilities before they can be exploited.
So it's like a mental game of chess with the hackers.
You got it. It's all about strategy.
Okay, and the guide outlines a 5-step OPSEC process.
It does.
All right, what's step 1?
First, you identify your critical information,
Okay.
the data that would cause the most damage if it were compromised.
Okay, so know your enemy.
Know your enemy, then you analyze the threats.
Okay.
Who might be targeting you and what are their motivations?
All right, so step 1, know your enemy. Step 2, analyze the threats.
You got it.
What's next?
Next, you analyze your vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Where are the weak points in your systems and processes? Okay. Once you've identified those, you assess the risk.
Okay.
How likely is it that each vulnerability will be exploited, and what would be the impact?
So it's about prioritizing those vulnerabilities based on their potential impact.
Exactly. You want to focus on the areas of greatest risk.
Makes sense. What's the final step in this OPSEC process?
Applying countermeasures.
Okay.
This is where you develop and implement strategies to mitigate the risks you've identified.
Okay, so OPSEC is all about being proactive and constantly evaluating my defenses.
It is. It's an ongoing process.
Got it. Now let's talk about businesses that handle sensitive financial data,
Okay?
like credit card information.
A very important topic.
Payment card security. Protecting the flow of money focuses on the unique challenges these businesses face.
It does.
What are the key takeaways from this section?
Start by understanding exactly what customer and card data you collect and store.
Okay.
Evaluate whether you need to keep all of it. The less sensitive data you store, the lower your risk in case of a breach.
Right. Minimize that data footprint. What else?
Tokenization is a powerful tool for reducing risk.
Okay, tokenization.
It replaces sensitive credit card data with non-sensitive equivalents.
So those tokenized numbers are like the fake credit cards they use in movies.
That's a great analogy. It's a way to protect the real data.
Okay, tokenization is a great way to add an extra layer of security. What other measures are crucial for payment card security?
Use secure tools and services, especially for payment processing.
Okay.
Control access to those systems. Only authorized employees should have access.
Okay.
And those systems should be isolated from less secure parts of your network.
Okay, so it's about building that impenetrable financial fortress.
Exactly. You want to make it as difficult as possible for attackers to get their hands on that sensitive data.
And remember the basics.
Always.
Strong passwords, firewalls, antivirus software, and being cautious with suspicious links.
It all adds up to a stronger defense.
Right, because even the most sophisticated systems can be compromised by simple human error.
That's true. The human element is often the weakest link.
Now, even with all these precautions, sometimes those walls do get breached.
It happens.
So let's talk about incident response. What happens when that walls are breached?
A time to face the music?
It's not a pleasant topic,
It's not.
but it's one that every business needs to be prepared for.
Absolutely.
So we're talking about what to do when the worst case scenario happens.
Exactly how to minimize the damage and recover as quickly as possible.
Okay, the key is to have a plan in place.
Before disaster strikes.
Before disaster strikes. Okay, walk me through the essentials of a good incident response plan.
The guy outlines several key steps.
Okay.
First, contain the breach.
Okay.
Identify the scope of the damage, isolate affected systems, and stop any further unauthorized access.
Right, like digital damage control.
Exactly.
Then move into recovery mode.
Yes.
Restore data from backups, clean infected systems, and rebuild compromised infrastructure.
Those are the crucial steps.
Okay, get things back up and running as quickly and securely as possible.
That's the goal.
What happens once we've recovered?
Hold a lessons learned meeting.
Okay.
Analyze what went wrong, how the breach happened, and how to prevent it from happening again.
Turn a negative experience into a learning opportunity? I like that.
It's the best way to improve your security posture.
What about documenting the whole process?
Documentation is crucial.
Okay.
It can help improve your security posture, demonstrate compliance, and potentially defend you in legal proceedings.
Right, because if a breach does occur, I want to be able to show that I took all the necessary precautions and that I responded appropriately.
Exactly. A good paper trail can be your best friend.
Okay, so incident response is all about being prepared, acting quickly, and learning from our mistakes.
It is. It's about being proactive rather than reactive.
Now, this next section, policy development, setting the rules of the game,
Yes.
sounds like it's about laying down the law in my company when it comes to cybersecurity.
That's a good way to put it. Clear and robust security policies are the bedrock of a strong security culture.
Okay, what are the key elements of good cybersecurity policies?
Start by defining clear roles and responsibilities.
Okay.
Who has access to what data? Who's responsible for managing and protecting that data?
Right, because ambiguity leads to confusion and potential security gaps.
It does. You want to eliminate any gray areas?
Okay, what other types of policies should I consider?
Think about your internet usage policy.
Okay.
How can you strike a balance between employee access and protecting the business from potential risks?
Okay.
Social media policies are also crucial.
Okay.
They can help mitigate reputational risks and prevent the accidental disclosure of confidential information.
So it's about establishing clear guidelines for how employees should behave in the digital world.
Exactly. You want to set those expectations and provide clear guidance.
And those policies shouldn't just be static documents.
Right. They need to be living, breathing documents.
They need to be regularly reviewed and updated.
Absolutely.
To keep pace with the evolving threat landscape and the changing needs of my business.
It's all about staying agile and adaptable in the face of new challenges.
Okay, so cybersecurity policies are living documents, always evolving and adapting to new challenges.
That's the key.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in part 2 of this deep dive.
We've delved into some pretty complex topics.
We have, and there's even more to explore.
There is, but we're saving the best for last.
Stay tuned for the final part of our cybersecurity deep dive, where we'll discuss additional resources and strategies for safeguarding your business.
We'll be back with more insights and actionable advice.
All right, we've journeyed deep into this world of cybersecurity, from understanding our data to building those layers of protection. My brain is definitely full.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, but this guide keeps hammering home the point that they're not the only resource out there.
Right. They really encourage seeking out expert help.
Yeah, and they specifically mention cybersecurity professionals, which makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
But they also highlight the importance of talking to insurance professionals.
Well, that's an interesting one.
Now, that's something I haven't really given much thought to. How does insurance play into this whole cybersecurity puzzle?
Think of cybersecurity insurance as kind of a safety net.
Okay.
Even with the best defenses, breaches can happen.
Right.
And when they do, the costs could be astronomical.
Oh, yeah.
Insurance can help cover those costs.
Okay.
From legal fees and customer notification to data recovery and business interruption.
So it's like acknowledging that in this digital world, some level of risk is unavoidable.
Yeah.
No matter how many layers I add to my onion.
Exactly. And insurance helps you manage that risk.
Okay.
And it's not just about the financial protection either.
Right.
Many cybersecurity insurance providers offer additional resources like access to security experts
Oh, okay.
who can help you assess your vulnerabilities and develop that comprehensive strategy that we've been talking about.
Okay, so if I'm feeling overwhelmed or I'm not sure where to start reaching out to these professionals is a good first step.
It's a great first step. They can tailor advice to your specific business needs and help you navigate this complex landscape.
Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
That's a good question. I think the biggest takeaway is that cybersecurity isn't just about technology.
Okay.
It's about creating a culture of awareness and vigilance.
So it's not just about buying the fanciest firewall or the most expensive software.
Those tools are important,
Yeah,
but they're only part of the solution. It's about educating your team, establishing clear policies, and integrating security into every aspect of your business.
right. It's about building that human firewall as well.
Exactly. And remember, this is an ongoing journey. The threat landscape is constantly evolving, so you need to adapt and stay informed.
It's like that old saying, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, but in this case, it's the price of cybersecurity.
I like that.
Okay, before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
All right, let's do it.
Think about one specific action you can take today to strengthen your business's cybersecurity.
That's a good one.
It could be changing a weak password, enabling multi-factor authentication, reviewing your privacy policy, or even just having a conversation with your team about the importance of security awareness.
Love it.
The key is to take action.
Action is key.
Knowledge without action is useless.
Well said.
We hope this deep dive has empowered you to protect your business in this digital world.
Stay safe out there.
And keep diving deep.